I will call to order the meeting, and our first order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Wheels. All right, our next item is solicitor announcements.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Upper Darby Zoning Hearing Board. If anybody needs an agenda, they're on the front table in the front. Along with those are forms for a certain way of participating in tonight's proceedings. There are two ways to participate in the zoning hearings tonight. The first is at the end of every application, there will be an opportunity for public comment. That's an opportunity for any person to come up and give a statement in support or in opposition of the relief being requested. That's open to anybody. If you feel that you are particularly affected by an application based on proximity to the property or interest, you can request what's called party status. If you will request, give you an opportunity to request party status at the beginning of each application. Party status will afford you the opportunity to participate fully in the hearing. That includes questioning the applicant's witnesses, presenting testimony or evidence of your own. You will receive a copy of the written decision of the board, and you will be eligible to take an appeal to the Court of Common Pleas if you disagree with the relief granted or denied by the board. And I believe that covers it, and we can move forward. But I would ask that we
Yeah, we're going to do
start
yes,
with
we're going to
3-2.
go a little out of order. First, we're just going to go with Appeal 3-2 of 23, the application of A&P Home Properties for 655 Drexel Avenue. We understand that the notice did not have all the proper appeals in it. I believe that
Yeah,
we had some
there was
conversations.
incomplete notice given, which the board apologizes for. Yes.
My name is Joe Matson. I'm an attorney. I'm a member of the Delaware County Bar Association, Pennsylvania Bar Association, representing the applicant, A&P Home Properties LLC. The solicitor and I had a conversation out in the hallway. We're human. Things happen. I've discussed it with my clients, and they're fine with having this relisted for April. I understand that you need certain waivers on the record for the time. Parameters usually set forth for decisions to be made by this board, and we're so happy to grant that waiver.
Thank you, Mr. Matson.
And I also understand that there'll be no posters that will have to be posted on the property. That hopefully we'll have all the relief requested at that time. And
Yes, we will ensure the relief is fully advertised, and you will have new posters.
Right, and
I think they'll be ready in a couple weeks.
well, I have the schedule as to when you can pick them up, and I'll check with L&I as to when they're ready, and we'll get them posted.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you. Have a good evening.
Apologize. Yep.
Was there anybody here for 3-2 of 23 for 655 Drexel other than the applicants group? All right, thank you.
Okay, so we will move on to Appeal 12-1 of 22, application of New Hope Properties LLC for a variance from Section 550-8A and 550-21B to permit a multifamily dwelling in a C1 zoning district. A variance from Section 550-8B to permit 2 principal uses on 1 lot, a special exception pursuant to Section 550-33C1D to permit the transit access credit to reduce the required parking by 11 spaces, a variance from Section 550-33A to permit fewer parking spaces than required, and a variance from Section 550-2, Table 5-1 to permit the maximum building height of 44 feet. This property is situated at 600 Garrett Road in Upper Darby, PA, and it's in the C1 Commercial District and in the 7th Council District.
Before I turn it over to Mr. Shafkowitz, we'll mark some exhibits. The first exhibit will be the application packet. The second exhibit will be the notice photos. And the third exhibit will be the proof of publication. We'll also include the transcript from the previous hearing, just so that we have the waivers and the continuances
Sounds great.
as part of that as well. Before you begin, is there anybody present tonight who would be looking to request party status for application 12-1 of 22 for 600 Garrett Road? Seeing none.
Thank you, members of the board. Mr. Solicitor, appreciate the introduction. Again, my name is David Shafkowitz. I'm here tonight on behalf of the applicant, New Hope Property LLC, which is the equitable owner of the parcel that we're looking at today, located at 600 Garrett Road, as mentioned, on the corner of Garrett and Walnut Street, and located in the township C1 Traditional Neighborhood Commercial District. Now, I know the board has a full agenda, and I know, so we wanted to kind of do our best to get through Mr. Mills' testimony. But nevertheless, I wanted to just give the board a little introduction. It seems for tonight that we have a lot of variances that we're requesting. One in particular is use variance, the other for parking height and the like. But I think what's unique about this project, unique about this property, and what the board will see tonight is that this is a real opportunity to redevelop this parcel. So in an attempt to redevelop the building, the property, make what we call an adaptive reuse of this building, this relief is going to be necessary. As it turns out, the applicant is going to propose to redevelop the property to add a fourth floor, add commercial space on the first floor, have 27 one-bedroom apartments. We're actually able to provide for 13 off-street parking spaces in the building. And then obviously asking for the relief for the other items that we discussed. So we're excited to present this. I think it's a very interesting, unique project. I think my clients have taken great pains into designing this to make it a focal point for the municipality and hopefully something the board would be excited to see get built. Having said that, I know we have some, but we want to start with our exhibit packet, which is just Mr. Mills going to hand up, which are copies of all the boards we have that we're going to show you guys today. So, Mr. Solicitor, maybe we want to just mark the packet as applicant's exhibit A1?
Yeah, we can mark that collectively as A1.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
And at this point, I'd like to introduce the board to Scott Mill. Scott Mill is our land planner for the project, registered landscape architect. I'll have Mr. Mill go through his qualifications so we can have him qualified as an expert for his testimony.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Can I have your full name, please?
It's L. Scott Mill, M-I-L-L.
Scott, why don't you just give the board the benefit of your professional background?
Sure. I graduate from Penn State University, Bachelor's of Landscape Architecture. Graduated May of 1997. I'm a licensed landscape architect in Pennsylvania. I've been licensed since 2002. I work at Van Cleef Engineering Associates. Our office is in Doylestown, and I've worked there since 2002. I've testified at several zoning hearing boards throughout Bucks, Montgomery, Chester County, and have been doing so for the last 20 years.
Mr. Solicitor, unless the board has any questions about Mr. Mill's qualifications, we'd ask him to be qualified as an expert in land planning and landscape architecture.
Any questions from the
I
board?
have no questions.
No questions.
I'd
I would
recommend
accept.
that we accept him.
Thank you so much. Mr. Mill, I know that you had prepared some boards for the application tonight. I know the board has a busy agenda, so I'm just going to let you kind of run with the presentation at this stage. Maybe start with the property, what the surrounding neighborhood is like, and then getting into the proposal.
Sure. So up on the board in the first page in your packet is the zoning hearing exhibit plan, black and white plan. You can see on the left-hand side shows a schematic layout of the interior floors of the building. At the bottom is the ground level. At the top is the proposed apartment layout. There would be 9 apartments per floor, 2 existing floors plus 1 added to the top. So there'd be 3 floors of apartments, 27 total. And on the first floor, there'd be 13 parking spaces and 3,381 square feet of retail space that would face out onto Garrett, as well as Walnut. There's the pre-existing use of the building was as a car dealership. There was also, I understand, a use as a contractor's type of storage area. So there is existing access, vehicular access into the building, which would be utilized for the proposed parking at grade. Unique to this property and unique to this site, the property is a total of 8,252 square feet. It fronts on 3 streets, Garrett, Walnut, and Shelbourne. And then on the only side that it doesn't front a street, the entire property length runs along an existing building. So essentially, there's no room for this site to grow or expand. It's pretty much self-contained. Additionally, the entire building takes up the entire site. The footprint goes out to the property boundaries. So it's 100% impervious, 100% building coverage, which is fairly unique. Additionally, as mentioned, it's zone C1, traditional neighborhood commercial. Across Garrett, there is, on the opposite side of Garrett, there is a trolley line that runs to the 69th Street station. And the proposal is an adaptive reuse of the building. It was previously commercial, industrial type uses. This would be more of a TOD type of development, transportation-oriented development, where you have kind of a mixed use, in this case, retail and residential, that is able to take advantage of the surrounding transportation, public transportation. So you have, as I mentioned, the trolley line. You also have the 69th Street station, which is a multi-nodal type of station, as I'm sure you're all aware, has busing, train, as well as trolley. So we'd be taking advantage of that. Move on to the second plan. Just real quick for some context, this is a image of the township's zoning map, and it shows the site, and you can see it in orange, and that's all that orange along the Garrett road alignment or pathway is C1 commercial. To the south of our property is R4, which you can see in brown, multifamily residential, and then kind of surrounding it on the other 3 sides is R2 residential. The next image shows 2 aerial photographs. The one on the bottom is kind of a straight down bird's eye view of the property and the surrounding area. The one above it is kind of a perspective, as if you're kind of back behind the property, showing Garrett Road off in the distance towards the top of the page. And the point of this image, or these images, is to show kind of the context of the existing building, which you can see in the upper left-hand corner in the upper image. And the idea of adding 1 story will not be a major change to the character of the neighborhood. There's an existing apartment building behind this property. Let me just get for context. The Grand Court Apartments and Stonehurst Apartments, it's total 4 stories, which is what we're proposing. There are 145 dwelling units in those apartments, in those apartment buildings, and there's no off-street parking available. So everything's on-street related to that. And that's directly behind the proposed building, or the existing building proposed to be reused. A little more in the foreground, you see three U-shaped apartment buildings. Those are also 4 stories in size. There is a total of 215 dwelling units in those apartments, and again, no off-street parking. Whereas again, we're offering 13 parking spaces for our proposed dwelling, and that's all kind of underneath the building. It also shows the connectivity of Garrett, and you can see 69th Street Station off to the right there. The next exhibit is a proposed building elevation. The one at the top shows the elevation from along, if you're standing on Walnut, looking at the property, and you can see the garage bay doors, 2 of them interspersed amongst the ground floor. And then on the bottom would be if you're standing on Garrett, looking in at the end of the building. And they both show the elevation, generally what it would look like with the addition of the 4th floor onto the building. So existing, again, there's 3 stories. Proposed would be 4 total and the proposed height would be 44 feet. And the last 3 exhibits I have, I'll just run through pretty quickly. They're basically from the architect, artistic renderings of what the anticipated building's going to look like when it's all developed and renovated. So you can see from Garrett Avenue on the picture in the upper right, you can kind of see like a wood or a stone type of facade with open, with windows in the front, opening into the storefronts in the back or behind that window. And then you can see the 3 stories of apartments above. And you can see some architectural accents and features such as the lighting, some landscaping along the frontage. And you can see that in the lower right picture as well, kind of at the intersection of Walnut and Garrett, showing some of that potential, green space, some planters and things like that to help liven up and continue with the revitalization of the township in this area and provide for a more walkable community and allow for people to not necessarily rely on their cars as much, being a TOD. The second board of images generally shows along Walnut what you would see, and you can see in the upper right, and lower left, kind of the treatment around the garage doors as for the vehicular access points, and showing some architectural vibrancy to that area. And the last one has 2 photos on it. Again, the one on the right showing from, if you're on the other side of Walnut, kind of looking straight at the building, seeing the garage doors and seeing the parking underneath, kind of at the back end of the building, as well as the 3 levels of apartments above. Picture on the left shows conceptually a planter and a bench. It also shows kind of a broken concrete type of feature on the sidewalk. I don't know that that would really be acceptable. I don't think it quite meets ADA standards, and that's, from an architectural standpoint, I think it looks nice, but reality, I don't know that that would actually come to fruition. Let me just go back to the original. So again, we're looking at the adaptive reuse of an existing building rather than a tear down, or rather than proposing something that wouldn't fit into the community. I think this type of TOD works well. Again, there's intermodal transportation, public transportation surrounding the property. There is ability to park on street on the other side of Garrett, and there are crosswalks and pedestrian lights to allow for the pedestrians to cross safely. I know some of the surrounding streets with those apartments behind, it's tough to find parking in some of those side streets behind the site. But from what I've seen when I've been out there, along Garrett, there's ample parking. And again, there's the parking underneath, which is more than what a lot of surrounding users and similar type of uses have available for their uses. I think at this point, do you want to go through the variances?
Scott, thanks for putting that presentation together. As part of this application, the applicant is seeking certain variances, is that correct?
That's correct.
And with regard to the variances that they're looking for, they have to deal with the use, the parking, the height, and the more than one use on the property.
That's
Correct.
correct.
Now, with regard to this being an adapted reuse, is it safe to consider these variances in kind of a bundle as we discuss the criteria under the MPC?
Yes.
With regard to the unique physical characteristics of this property, you had mentioned that the property is improved with a structure that has some existing nonconformities, fronts on several streets, and the like. Are these types of things that would be unique physical characteristics related to this property?
Yes.
Do you believe that those unique physical characteristics had created a hardship to develop the property in conformance with the zoning ordinance?
Yes.
Now, based on the use that's being provided, the applicant is proposing 27 one-bedroom apartments and about 3,300 square feet of commercial space. Is that the type of uses that are consistent with the surrounding neighborhood? And if you can explain to the board why they are consistent?
Sure. So as you go up and down, particularly Garrett, there are several buildings and properties where you have a retail or a commercial type use on the first floor and then apartments above. And that's typical in kind of a downtown, not quite suburban area, a little more urban, where you have that mixed use type of use on properties.
Now, I know you had mentioned, or we referenced this as an adaptive reuse. Can you explain to the board a little bit more what that means in the planning context?
Sure. So in essence, you're basically taking, in this case, an existing structure that was built for a previous type of use that is no longer viable. In this case, a commercial standalone use. It was previously, as I mentioned, a car dealership and a kind of a contractor's type storage area where it was, more in keeping with the times at that time where you had more industrial type uses. As some of those types of uses are no longer viable, kind of in a downtown area, this adaptive reuse is a way of reconditioning those properties and reusing those properties for uses that are more in keeping with what today's standards are and today's market. And in this case, we've got the retail on the first floor and then the apartments above.
Now, you had also mentioned another famous planning phrase of a TOD, or transit-oriented development. Can you maybe explain a little bit more to the board about what that is and how that helps this particular project that's being proposed?
Sure. We've worked on a few TODs over the years. And basically the idea is you're developing a property near some sort of transportation hub, whether it's a train station. In this case, we have the train station nearby the 69th Street station. We also have the trolley line right across the street. You also have busing in the area. So you have development of a property in close proximity to public transportation. And the idea is there's less need for vehicular transportation, less need for cars. And so the idea of reduced parking kind of fits hand in hand with these types of TODs.
So in the planning world that you work in, the concept of having a transit-oriented development generally is a direct relation to a need for less parking, especially in the residential context.
Yes.
And that's because most people will look to live in a place like this because they can commute to other areas.
Right. They can commute to other areas. And also in a situation like this, you've got a walkability type of scenario with downtown, that there are other shops and restaurants that you don't have to get into a car and drive around to get to.
So there's the idea of adding residential uses to this particular structure, even though outside the ordinance, these folks will have available to them all the other amenities that they would need that exist in the town.
Correct.
Um, So do you believe that in any way that the applicant, what the applicant is proposing would be detrimental to the neighborhood in general?
No, I think it's consistent with what you see in the surrounding area with, as I mentioned, the retail or commercial on the first floor, and then the apartments above.
And do you believe that the height is consistent with the surrounding neighborhood?
I do.
Do you believe that the addition of the fourth floor would be a detriment to the public welfare?
No.
With regard to the parking, I mean, I know we talked about at length the nature of the transit-oriented development, but do you believe, based on those factors, that there would be sufficient parking for the site?
I do, between the 13 spaces on the ground floor, and then as mentioned, the available on-street parking along Garrett.
And the nature of developing this into one-bedroom units versus two-bedroom units, which would be more of maybe a husband and wife or a couple or single individuals rather than being suited for families in general,
Correct.
which would also enhance or lessen the need for parking, so to speak.
Right.
In your opinion, is the applicant requesting the minimum relief necessary for the project?
Yes.
Now, the other part of the relief that we're requesting from the board has to do with the parking and the ability to take advantage of the transit-oriented use and a reduction of the parking. And that's request is there a special exception, is that correct?
That's correct.
Have you had an opportunity to review the special exception criteria in the ordinance?
I did.
Do you believe that the applicant has satisfied that criteria with this particular project?
Yes.
And can you just briefly explain the criteria and how the applicant?
Sure.
satisfies that?
One of the requirements is that you have nearby either metered or on-street parking, which we have, as I mentioned, along Garrett. We also have parking underneath the structure. It also, there's a requirement to be in close proximity to a station or a public transportation stop. And in this case, we have a trolley stop right across Garrett Street from this site. And with the crosswalk and the pedestrian walking signal, it allows for safe access.
Now, Scott, the only reason I'm going back to the board with these pretty elevations is obviously the project looks great from these elevation standpoints, but have you had an opportunity to discuss this with the applicant, and is the applicant prepared to build a building substantially in conformance with the elevations presented?
Yeah, that's my understanding. Yep.
And with regard to the amenities that are provided in the streetscape, with the lighting, with the sidewalk improvements, with the public seating improvements, is the applicant prepared to do all those items that are shown on this plan as well?
Yes.
Madam Chair, I think that's most of my questions for Mr. Mill. I'm sure the board must have some questions on the application.
Yeah, I have a couple. I guess I didn't hear, you said you're adding the fourth story, so I assume the building currently is 3 stories?
That's
And you're
correct.
just adding to it, you're not knocking it down and rebuilding?
That's
or-
correct.
And then, I guess I didn't hear what the need for the 4th story was. I know you're requesting it, you say it's in character with other buildings in the area, but I did not hear the need for the 4th story.
In order to continue to provide the parking on the ground floor, rather than having apartments on that ground floor, the need to have that additional floor allows for the apartments that are needed.
Wouldn't, if you only had the 2 stories of living, wouldn't it be more compliant with the zoning code for parking?
Technically, yes.
And then I had a couple questions on the height.
Unless we use the entire first floor for some other type of use, whether it's commercial or retail.
I had a couple questions on the height. So you requested 44 feet. Is that from, I think, the one architectural photo? You have the buildings, and then there's a couple little architectural features, which gets you to the 42 feet. I think it's 44 feet. 1, 2, 3. It's the 4th page, this one. I think the building itself is 42, but then the architectural features put it at 44. But
That's
then
correct.
on your renderings, the building appears to be different. It doesn't have those same architectural features. It's more of a flat roof. There is like a kind of on the side of the building, it looks like there's like a wood feature.
Yeah, that's kind of an architectural parapet type of wall that extends up above. And you can see on the architectural exhibit too, the lower left-hand corner.
So basically, the two exhibits don't, which one are you proposing? Because the 42, this appears to be larger than 2 feet above the building. this little
We would
architectural
maintain,
feature.
we wouldn't, if we got relief for the 44, we would maintain that. And whether, this is an architectural rendering, if this has to be adjusted a little bit to bring that down, I don't know scale-wise exactly how high it is to the top of that parapet wall in that rendering, but if it's shown as 43, then maybe there's some other, opportunity to,
Yeah, I think there's
undulate.
also an issue with it being right at the building line, the front of the building. I think in the definition of height, it has to be set back at least a foot or 10 feet from, the architectural feature would have to be set
For every 10 feet.
1 feet for every 10 feet. There it is. So, yeah.
Yeah, I guess the question is, the elevation shows one building and the rendering shows another.
Right.
So which is being proposed?
Mine-
Because the board, I think
Yeah,
the board just wants to
typically,
have an
yeah,
idea
I
of
mean,
what the
when
height
we,
and the
if we
massing
were to
is.
make a decision, it's based off the information
Understood,
that's provided to
understood.
us. And if we have kind of differing information, which are we approving?
Yeah, I mean, it's slightly different, just undulating architectural features. I think generally the renderings you see before you are essentially what they would like to do.
But they're two different ones. That's what I'm saying. The architectural plan.
I'm sorry,
And
the
the
colored
renderings.
renderings that are more like the photorealistic,
So you're going with the renderings as
Right.
opposed to the architectural plan.
as opposed to the black and white elevations.
Right.
Which, from that perspective, it would be the height, and from the design and from the look, more so the photorealistic renderings.
And you don't know the height.
44 feet,
So-
from grade to the top.
So that,
most-
that little piece would probably, it definitely looks taller than 2 feet.
And that's if that top of the roof is at 42. I don't know, I don't have a scale, I'm not exactly sure when the architect put that together. It might be 41 and a half, it might be 41 when they just scaled it in their SketchUp or their 3D modeling. But yeah, we would limit it to 44 feet at the maximum.
I think, I also, so this, the photo shows some like broken concrete type.
Yeah, I'd mentioned that. It's an architect kind of getting,
I
I
don't think
think.
that's what you would want to see on a,
No, I don't think that would
Proceed.
necessarily meet ADA requirements, so I think we'd be looking at something a little more,
okay.
acceptable. Possibly stamped, but, right. And I know some,
But that-
downtown architectural details have certain paving patterns they like to see incorporated in their downtown. If there's something like that that the township would like to see, we could, I'm sure, incorporate. I've seen some where they're concrete outer squares and then they've got brick pavers in the middle or concrete pavers in the middle or some other type of detailed treatment that kind of lets you know you're kind of in the downtown area and kind of gives some consistency throughout the developed area.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Yep, go ahead, Bob.
I don't know how else to describe it, but this presentation you have, we have the 4 pieces. It shows, it looks like it's a bump out as you're going around the curb or a setback of part of the sidewalk. Is that what you plan to do? Is it reduction from the existing sidewalk?
I think that's what the architect's showing. We're not proposing any modification at this point.
So it's
In
a
that
straight
area.
run like it is right now.
Right.
And I know that there are other I know that sometimes they use that area to stop to fill up Dollar General. They bring their trucks up along that side. It's
And that might be more in front of their property, more so than,
Unfortunately,
Then
it
yes.
doesn't go that way.
okay. Right.
I mean, if Dollar General is using someone else's property,
They
that's something
are-
that
It's a, like
they
a
should not be
loading
doing.
area.
they can't have a loading area on someone else's property. In the
It's in-
street?
In the street, yes.
Oh, okay.
Straight.
I thought you were saying they were coming
No.
up on the sidewalk to
No.
do it.
And
The concern I would have with something like this is it's not a full width car. It's not 8 to 10 feet based on that. So you'd have cars still kind of sticking out partway into the lane. And we could add signage that says no loading or no parking. If there aren't, I don't believe there are any right now.
I had questions about, I guess, loading and parking. So say someone wanted to bring up groceries. They have a vehicle, they're not parking under the building, they want to bring in groceries, double park. Would they be typically double parking like you were currently doing today versus, I seen the bump out and I was going to ask you, what was that for? So that they could bring things up, because that street, Walnut, is not very wide, so to double park on that street
Mhm.
is a problem. I mean, even Garrett Road isn't wide, but it's a two-lane, two directions.
Right.
So how would one that lived there be able to unload their vehicle safely?
Um,
And then the other question would be, is there a freight loading dock area for people moving in and out? Like, where would that be?
That would have to be on street, finding adequate space to find a van or a moving truck of some sort.
Maybe I can help answer that question. I think in the interior, that if we know that people are moving in, we can make arrangements for those particular date to provide the truck access to the underground parking so they can use the elevator and go up, load and unload that way from a move-in and move-out perspective. I think that part will be easy through management and that, like, and I was just trying to, I don't know how much room we have along Walnut, but where the cart out, or the driveway would be for the garage, there might be an area to stripe for loading and unloading for those particular purposes, where we don't want people to be on Garrett because those are for the commercial. We want to do any loading or unloading on Walnut because hopefully a little less activity than Garrett would be, but also because we have the garage entrance there, and that would be the easiest way to kind of get in, get the groceries upstairs, and get back to the car, get it parked.
So what about, I mean, I hear you say you can coordinate a move, but a moving truck where the proposed doors, I'm just thinking the doors that are there now. And even when cars, they're not double parked now, but I can remember when businesses were there, or double parked, it really impedes traffic.
Yeah,
So would
it's a,
that block your garage? Someone is coming in and know that, oh my God, there's a moving truck there, it's gonna take 2 hours, while we unload.
right. Well, we hope to have a lot of long-term tenants. No, I'm just kidding. So,
No,
yeah.
well, yeah.
No, these are practical issues. And one of the things I think that we can work with the interior, there is a carve-out in the interior layout for the parking. There's a carve-out similar to this, which we can maybe enhance a little bit more. So when people come in for loading, unloading interior, that they'll be off the street, they'll be in the garage. They have plenty of room to load and unload. And then they can move their car out if they don't have the assigned space, or however that'll work.
That will
through
only be on the
management.
Walnut Street side, you're saying, not the.
Yeah,
Garrett
come in
Road.
on the Walnut Street, go in under the building, and then on Scott's first plan, if I may. In the interior, there's a carve out in here. You come in.
Yeah, I see that,
That we might be able to enhance that a little bit differently with regard to maybe pushing the retail space a little bit, give us some more room to create the interior loading and unloading area, so that way we resolve all of our problems. So nobody's loading on Walnut, we can have all the loading and unloading inside.
okay,
Yeah, because I mean, these are,
What's the height of the garage?
yeah.
that's a great question.
Because it seems like if it's just one story, I don't know that you can bring trucks into that.
I was in there, it is pretty.
Would a moving truck be able to, I didn't think you were saying you
don't-
would bring a truck in there, are you?
It just depends on the nature of the truck. I'm not exactly sure, but I would imagine it would be 12 feet.
Could be 10 to 12. I'm not 100% sure.
And I think your loading issues, now that you bring it up, like if you're going to have a retail, I don't know what type of retail, at least in your renderings, you have some sort of grocery store, that's probably going to have loading more than, the tenants, which if hopefully they stay in your building forever, you would never have to do that. But the retail might also have issues with loading and unloading.
Well, I think with the retail, what is actually being considered as a pharmacy right now, which would be perfect, and it might take the whole space, so you just have one user, which is a really good kind of complementary use to the residential in the area. But I think what it is that we have some flexibility, again, architects was just trying to give us a picture that knowing the concept of loading and unloading, either for the retail space or for the residents, that is going to happen on a more regular basis. People will do their shopping and will want to have that opportunity that we can make some adjustments inside. I see plenty of room to do that. Obviously, work with Josh's office or the township staff to make that happen. I also understand that we may be going through a land development phase of this, and if the board obviously considers that an issue, which I think is something that should be addressed for this project, we can make sure that that gets addressed.
Another thought I had was in reference to when you come to that light at Garrett and Walnut, so the left lane turns left and the right lane goes straight across the tracks. So you are really limited if a vehicle or someone's loading or unloading because they're double parked in the street and you have one lane turning left and one lane going across or turning right. You know what I'm saying? In terms, yeah. So that blocks the entire lane
Yeah,
by the building.
and that's why I think we'll have to make arrangements for that.
Exactly, I don't know.
Sherry sworn in?
Yes. That's perfect. That's why I think as part of the project, going through the land development phase, we'll make sure we address that. And if necessary, obviously sign the road along Walnut, but I think we can get the stuff that would be the more regular loading inside. So there isn't the double parking problem. Because we have room. We have room to shorten up some of the commercial if need be, push this back a little bit, create a bigger carve out, and even maybe make, I have to talk to the client, but maybe there's even 2 parking spaces that can go in here parallel, which will just be for loading and unloading our striped area.
Is there any elevator service?
Yes.
Yes.
It has to be.
Where is that on your presentation?
If you look at the black and white plan, the lower floor shows an elevator at the back of the building, opposite Walnut. And then you can see it up on the upper plan as well, the
On
upper
the
floors.
Shelbourne side?
It's actually on the wall.
The dollar store side, Dollar General.
Okay. I couldn't read that.
Is there anybody looking to make public comment, or I don't think we asked for parties? We did, okay, public comment.
Good evening. I'm Rita LaRue. I'm an 18-year resident of Upper Darby, Windermere. Yep, LaRue, L-A, capital R-U-E. 519 Windermere Ave, Drexel Hill. Thank you. I'm also the acting co-chief administrative officer of Upper Darby Township. And I'm here tonight to share what excites me about this project, because community and economic development is a passion for me. And what excites me about this project is that it can be a template for what we do on Garrett Road and throughout the township. When we have a mixed-use development and we activate the streetscape, there are so many great things that can happen. And I understand that when a mixed-use development comes before us and you've got the retail on the first floor, that developers need to add another level so that the cost of putting in that retail is offset with the revenue they'll eventually bring in from those apartments. Mixed-use development was a major part of what I did when I was a vice president at Drexel University. And we really intended to improve the entire neighborhood by putting in mixed-use developments and creating more pedestrian activity on the streets. We did a development at 32nd and Chestnut, which was a pretty much barren block, evenings and weekends. It had academic buildings and a student dining center. And we built 800 beds of student housing and put in 32,000 square feet of retail. And that block went from being desolate nights and weekends to being the 6th busiest pedestrian corridor in all of Philadelphia. And what was really important about that, in addition to serving the students and serving the community, was public safety. When you have corridors that are kind of blank walls on the street, they are very desolate nights and weekends. When you have the retail built in so that pedestrians are coming and going, it creates critical mass and it helps improve the public safety in the area. And I like the idea of this project as designed being a template for what we can do on Garrett Road, which has a lot of pockets of a little bit of desolation. And there are some challenges to it. I was listening closely to the move-in and the move-out with 800 students. That was a big issue for us. And I would encourage the board to maybe consider asking the developer to specify times that people can move in and move out, for example, so that it can't just be anytime somebody feels like it. It might be times when there is lower volume coming through those busy streets as people commute. I commuted for almost 15 years from my home down Garrett Road to Drexel University. So again, from a community and economic development perspective, this is our opportunity to revitalize this section of Upper Darby, and it complements very nicely the modernization that is happening up Garrett toward Lansdowne, Delaware Community College that's going in, the YMCA, which is embarking on a master plan, as well as the work that SEPTA is going to be doing on the 69th Street Transportation Center. So what we're doing is we're anchoring Garrett Road, which is such an important thoroughfare for Upper Darby. We're anchoring it with that revitalized 69th Street Transportation Center and the excitement with Delaware County Community College, the Y, and everything that's going to happen very soon at that end of Garrett. And we start to fill in so that when people are driving through, they're seeing a very activated corridor. It's a business corridor. It's a residential corridor. We've got lots of mixed-use development as our template. We, because of our transportation, can get cars off the road, which I think is a really important goal, not just for Upper Darby, but for many, many towns and cities. And we have the opportunity to test it out here as designed. I was also very happy to see the bench and the greening that they put on that forward-facing to the streetscape to make it attractive. So it's not just about, we don't want to create the blank walls. We want to create as much activity and welcoming atmosphere as we can for our residents and for our guests to Upper Darby. Thank you.
Anybody else with comments? Deb, you said you have another question that,
Yeah,
Got
I'm gonna
raised.
try to make it one lump sum question, but will there be, so I appreciate what she spoke to, and I think about the type of people who would be employed in the storefront or whoever retail that comes in? Will it be for, will there be community and residents able to work, bringing jobs to the community? In addition to, is there a front desk or people, manager that will be on site living there or or just checking in? Like, I'm trying to figure out, how do we bring employment to the community? Because we have this, it is a beautiful rendition, it looks great, but how do we bring the community into it in addition to having safety? I'm all for safety, like things can look pretty and nice, but we also want to be safe.
Yeah, and I think,
Security, those types of things.
Ms. LaRue had definitely mentioned a few of the items that really enhance those qualities that we are proposing for this particular project. But as it turns out, the equitable owner, soon-to-be owner of the property, their offices are just down the street. They're within walking distance from this property. They're going to self-manage it. They're going to own and operate it, so they're going to be right there and available. I think there's room potentially to have a little office for a manager if need be. I don't know if 27 units requires a full-time manager, but they're going to be there available or they'll hire somebody to be there available for their residents. And, like I said, with the 3,000 square foot retail, if it's opened 8 to 6 type of timeframes and having 2 shifts, there will be opportunities for some employment for sure.
And it really looks upscale, so when you bring that type of,
Yeah, that's what we're
yeah,
shooting for.
you bring that
It's,
to the community, you would want to see some people working there
Yeah.
from the community as well.
and I
keeping
think
that
it was an interesting idea of potentially the pharmacy being one of the users they were contemplating, because it's a more of a, hopefully an upper scale use, so to speak.
Mhm.
Something that'd be
Everyone
open
can
all the time, something people are coming in and out and have that activity. I know DoorDash delivers everything these days, but, that's what we're hoping for,
Yeah.
is to,
Yeah.
and I think one of the things that Scott had mentioned, and this is interesting, even just being in this part of Garrett Road area, that when I was looking at all the buildings that exist as you go up towards this property, they're all really consistent with this. Everything along Garrett Road, or a lot along Garrett Road that exists today, is the 4-story building, first floor commercial, 3 stories of residential above. And that's what we're trying to do. And if we could take that opportunity to, if we're one of the first or starting that trend of kind of upscaling it a little bit, creating the streetscapes, my clients seem very excited about doing all that.
Okay, thank you.
You bet.
Your streetscape that you're showing in the last page, shows a planter, trees, plaza, and also shows a bench.
Unique bench.
Concrete bench. How big is that? Expecting it to be?
It's a good question. I'm not exactly sure, and I would think it would be similar to any bench, 6 to 8 feet.
6 to 8 feet.
Yeah. I think the whole point of showing that is the client or the applicant's commitment to doing the streetscape. I think when we go through this process with township staff, they're going to give us the guidance on what really suits the area. If that type of kind of Art Deco looking bench system works, great. If it's something more traditional, whatever suits Upper Darby, it's just the idea that we're committed, and we'll continue to work with staff to make sure it's done the right way.
And it's similar to, like I had mentioned about, if there are certain specific paver patterns or sidewalk patterns, a lot of municipalities have like their typical bench that they like, has some sort of architectural feature that they like to use consistently throughout the municipality, so that it, lets people know where they are, whether it's trash cans, bike racks, benches.
Even putting a township crest on them.
Right.
Were you done? It just made me think about so does this building bump up against to the dollar store? I mean, right up, so there is no side, no backside, other than the street, what is that, Shelbourne, that street? So there's no other sides to the building?
We lost the fourth side, so to speak, but that's
Okay.
why this makes way more sense as a redevelopment than a tear down, because we don't want to have to impact the next door.
Okay.
So I have clarity on the record, you're requesting that if all the relief is granted, you'll end up with 13 parking spaces, correct?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Where are these other parking spaces going to be?
Where are they now? Go ahead, Scott.
Like I had mentioned before, due to the apartment building behind it, a lot of those side streets, it'd be tough to find parking. But out on Garrett, there's ample parking on the other side.
On the other side of Garrett?
On the
Back,
other,
sir?
opposite side of the street from the building. So you'd park there, come down to the corner, use the pedestrian crosswalk and cross over to this side.
So I want to make sure that I'm clear. You mean, that's not Garrett, what is that street? That's
I
Park.
think
no,
they're suggesting the
the
parking
other-
would be along the tracks.
Along the tracks.
Isn't it where it is now?
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah,
we need less
I
parking.
guess my problem with the parking is if you want to make it more upscale, you need more parking. Upscale, I mean, they would want parking. So you're kind of like, you've kind of maxed it out because you've added that extra floor. That's why I asked the question on if there really is a need for that fourth floor, because you're more compliant, obviously, if you have less apartment space. And I think, it may suit the building better with that less floor plan, and more compliant parking.
Right, I just don't know if it makes the project viable. So that's one of the issues, is getting the guidance and, kind of being consistent with what's in the community, of providing the first floor commercial. We actually are kind of unique compared to the other multifamily buildings in the area where they have no off-street parking at all. At least we could provide some of it. We specifically were cautious about the one-bedroom apartments for those reasons. It's usually no car or one car. And the nature of being a transit-oriented development. I do a lot of work for clients that are in similar situations. And we do have that, when we go through kind of the land development process, we always are looking at that concept of how much parking do we need to support a building that has 80 apartments, 100 apartments, or what have you. And we find it's all related to the mix of the units. And in a lot of instances, when we are near public transportation, it is somewhat dramatic where the parking needs go down. And what we see is that just the fact that you're close or within walking distance of those facilities, it doesn't change whether it's low scale, upscale, whether there's parking available for that. They're still getting the maximum rents that are available in that community. It's kind of like if you build it, they will come kind of thing. So what we see is that the availability of parking isn't really going to be the issue. If anything, the spaces may be a premium for people who want to pay, for living in this space and they happen to have a car, it may actually cost them more. So it may be better for somebody who doesn't need the vehicle. This would be a good spot for them. And they can commute in any direction, so.
I mean, I guess I understand the concept. It just seems like there's so little parking with this. We're not talking about half of the required parking, it's a quarter of what's required.
Right.
Maybe a third. Just seems a little excessive on the parking relief.
I'd like to piggyback with, since the college is going down the road, did you even consider college students looking at your project as, oh, this is a new development that's coming in? Parents looking, okay, well, we can put our kids in here, so then you got that kind of a turnover as well.
Well, I don't think that's the goal with this, and I'm
I
not sure
know,
that,
but-
yeah, I'm not sure.
But if I were looking in Pennsylvania, or, like my kid was going there, I'm looking for not a dorm, but an apartment.
Yeah, and
I might consider, so would you turn people down if that were the case?
I think
Not you, but.
yeah, I think the idea is there's a certain level of
Long-term.
decorum that we really want to
Long-term
keep,
living.
yeah, to have a long-term viability of this. It doesn't need to turn into 27 kids living there from college.
No, I just thought about it as.
But
Mr.
but it does create an interesting point, because if they're going to the new community college that's being built and they can walk,
Yeah,
they won't need the
exactly.
cars, like a lot of people don't want to have cars on campus. I think it could create some of those opportunities, and I think the nature of the one-bedroom apartment
Mm-hmm.
concept, we're not looking to put like 3 or 4 kids in the one-bedroom
Mm-hmm.
kind of thing. But, if it's, it wouldn't be somebody that would be turned away, but it would certainly be something available. We just don't want it to be just that.
Right.
that kind
No, I was just thinking that you could possibly get those kind of tenants or requests because of proximity to the school.
Yeah, and we're also hoping that with the ability to commute to to downtown, that a lot of people who live in the city don't require vehicles. This gives them a chance to kind of get out of that kind of area. And then in the same respects, maybe there's graduate students or people who are pursuing professional degrees that would prefer to be out here and doing that kind of thing where they don't need vehicles and they can commute to the city to go to school. So I just know my daughter just got into Temple, so I just would love for her not to be living in North Philly, but it's under today's circumstances.
I guess there's no other questions. I guess I have to make a motion. I'm struggling with this one a little bit.
Yeah.
Um,
Can I ask one other question?
Yeah, go ahead.
Just confirm, this hasn't gone to land development yet?
Are you right? I don't know if you're asking us, but no, not yet.
I think-
Mrs. LaRue, has this gone to land development yet?
You can't-
I can answer that. So this has not gone to land development yet. It would be after this.
All right, so I think we're going to go back in exec session to discuss this application. Okay, so we met in executive session, to talk about legal matters related to the application. And I guess I just wanted to ask to see if you would consider continuing the hearing with the intent that you look for some shared parking that could be used to, create a little more parking for this property. Well, I mean, I don't know that I can necessarily tell you where it could be, but to kind of look with other businesses maybe around the area that would fit, kind of opposite of residential use, timeframes where you could share some parking,
Yes.
in the overnight hours.
No, yeah. And it was one of the things I was thinking about that probably should have mentioned is the nature of the type of parking that's going to be needed is just for overnight purposes. I mean, most people who will have cars in a residential component aren't looking to park on the street all day. They commute in the morning, come back in the evening.
Right.
So certainly we'd like to look at that opportunity. Maybe even staff can put us in a direction where maybe there's some people who might have availability for that and then get back to the board. May also help us with the hardship issue that if there is no shared parking available, even though the ordinance kind of mentions that it might be available or should be looked at for credits.
Right.
Maybe we can at least take that harder look.
Would you like to continue to our next hearing, or would you like a further continuance to
I think-
accommodate that?
Not to interrupt, but if we can go to the next hearing, that'd be wonderful.
Okay, so do we have to make a motion for continuing, or?
No, we can just continue it to the April 25th hearing at 7 PM in municipal building. Let's take a vote on it just to be.
Yep, I'll make a motion to continue the hearing. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Aye.
And thank you for all your feedback and questions and help with the projects. We
Sure.
appreciate it.
Yeah. So we will move on to our next hearing. This is Appeal 1-5 of 23, application of Innocent, I'm going to butcher your
It's
name.
Onwubiko.
Amubiko, sorry for butchering your name, for a variance from section 550-50D, table 4-2, to permit a duplex with less than 3,000 square feet of lot area per unit. This property is at 32 Kent Lane in Upper Darby, PA. It's in the R3 residential district and in the 6th council district.
The board will enter the following exhibits. ZHB1 will be the application packet. ZHB2 will be the notice photos. ZHB3 will be the proof of publication. Is there anyone in the audience tonight who would like to request party status for this application? Seeing none, Madam Chair, can proceed.
Oh, yes.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes. Good evening. My name is Garrett Palvarento. I'm here in representation of Innocent Onwubiko. My last name is Palverento. Garrett, Garrett.
Sir, can I just ask, what's your relationship to Mr. Onwubiko?
I was just about to get into that. So he's my client, and I'm a general contractor. When he had originally purchased this property, it came with 3 kitchens and bathrooms.
Okay, pause right there. Is Mr. Onwubiko here tonight?
He's not, he wasn't able to be here tonight, so I came in his, to represent his interest.
So, under the policies of this board, you as a general contractor cannot represent the applicant.
Okay.
Because that would be considered the practice of law. And if you're not an attorney, which I'm assuming you're not based on the.
Not
okay.
currently.
Based on your introduction alone, then we can't have you proceed on his behalf. If he were here, we could we could make that work, but if
You
you're
have to be
here by
present.
yourself, yeah.
All right, because a big part of the issue is that he's, he's a foreigner and he has an issue with, with dealing with the whole situation. So if I could get him down here, I would still be able to represent him. It's an easy issue. that we're looking at.
If he were here, we could make it work,
If-
yes.
If you,
Okay.
do you want to try today? Would he be available
I
today?
won't be
or-
able to get him down here today. He wasn't able to, he wasn't even in town to be able to make it
Okay.
here.
Yeah, then we could. continue
Had
this.
we
Are-
known,
are-
I
are
didn't
you-
know, or we would have, tried to either reschedule or something.
Let's do this. I know that we had issues with getting this property posted and whatnot to proceed with this hearing. Are you available on April 25th?
I can be, I can make myself.
Are you able to at least call Mr. Almabico and ensure that he is available on April 25th?
I can, yes.
Okay, let's just put a pause on this one. If you can step out and give Mr. Almabico a call, and if we do that, we'll continue this on the record, and then we don't have to necessarily worry about posting and advertising for this application again, which may save everybody a little trouble.
Okay, that would be great.
So feel free to step in the hall and just let us know once you have talked to Mr.
All right,
Almabico.
thank you very much.
Thank you. So we'll just temporarily recess that application and go back to it.
All right, so we will move on to the next application. That's Appeal 1-6 of 23, application of La Palma Produce, Inc. for a variance from Section 550-33 to request relief from the parking requirement of 1 off-street parking space per 250 square feet of floor area. This property is situated at 400 East Baltimore Pike in Lansdowne, PA. It's in the C4 Commercial District and in the 7th Council District.
So before we begin, the board will mark the following exhibits. ZHB 1 will be the application packet, ZHB 2 will be the notice photos, and ZHB 3 will be the proof of publication. Welcome back, Mr. McCreish. But before I turn it over to you, is there anybody in the audience this evening who is requesting party status for this application? Seeing none. Mr. McCreish, welcome back. And you can
Thank you,
proceed.
thank you. I know we were here last month. I don't know if I handed up a copy of the lease and a copy of the property owner who is Ms. Gonzalez's mother.
I don't think we got that far because of the notice issue.
I didn't think so. So I have the letter from her for permission and also a copy of the lease.
We'll mark the lease as A1 and we'll mark the authorization letter as A2.
So this is, and the other, so we had two issues last time, and they corrected that, they had the pull downs on the, over the notice, and also that it was, we had marked it 404, it's actually 400. There's one deed for two properties. This is two parcels, but this is 400. But it's one deed, so we had to change it to 400 East Lansdowne. It's going to be a small produce store, maybe some groceries. It's, like you said, 4,525 square feet, would require 17 or 18 parking spots by the township code. There are 10 spots out front, and they'll show you pictures. There's also like a side. I think it used to be. It's no longer used for the. But you can see that it's a side area that has. They can get like maybe 8 more cars there. It's 152 feet long that goes along the side of the building. I have my clients here. You want to introduce yourself and put your name on the record?
My name is Emmanuel Nolasco.
Okay.
How you doing, everybody? NOLCO.
Okay, and,
My name is Maria Rojas.
okay,
What's the last name?
Rojas, Rojas.
okay.
Can we have
And,
them?
and what's your relation to the project, your husband and what?
Can we have them
No,
sworn?
Let's have them
in?
sworn
Oh,
in.
I'm sorry.
Who's gonna be going first?
Sorry?
Who wants to testify? You only need one of you.
Oh,
Who-
okay,
who-
I can do it.
Matt, he'll testify.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole
Yes,
truth,
I do.
and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Okay. And you go by Manny, correct?
Yeah, just my many.
Okay, all right. So can you explain to the board what you're gonna do with this project, what you wanna do?
Right, we wanted to open, like produce store on, for the neighbors. Also, my mother-in-law, he live right across 2 blocks from the store. And we want to support something from the neighbors. We want to open a grocery store, fresh produce, flowers, and bushes. And we tried to open soon, like, last year, and we have a problem with the parkings. We have a 10 parking spot on front, and we have a side row we can use for another 8 cars on the side behind the loading zone.
Maybe I'll mark these. So how do you want to mark? You want to mark these photos?
Are they all photos?
Yes, it's just 3 photos.
We'll mark them collectively as A3.
Okay.
Got it.
And then, let me hand this one up. This, so that depicts where the deliveries would be on the side. All right, and, how many cars do you think can fit on the, how many cars do you have, how many parking spots do you have in front of the store?
On front of the store, right on front, we have 10 spots for 10 cars, besides where the door is. And next to that, we can put 8 cars at least on the side.
On the side, okay. Now, the 10 cars in the front, it includes in front of 404.
404, yes.
Okay.
Correct.
And what is 404 being used? Is it vacant? What's the use for 404?
For right now, we use for, we're gonna use for storage.
Okay, all right. And how many employees would you have?
At least 6 employers we're gonna do for,
And what would your hours of operation be?
we try to get 9 a.m. to 9 p.m.,
Okay. How many days a week?
7 days a week.
7 days. Okay. And how many registers would you have?
At least 2.
2 registers. Okay. And what would your the products you would have?
We gotta get, like you said, fresh vegetables. We gotta get flowers and a couple, grocery.
I just wanted to submit one more sketch if you want, if maybe it's easier for you to see the whole layout of where everything is. So that, this is the 400, and that's kind of that side area where we're showing, and this is the front.
Okay, I think the board has that sketch in the
Yeah, you
application
have it.
packet.
You have that as part of, okay, good, okay. So the board already has this sketch, so that, you present that sketch which shows the parking in the front,
Right.
and then your 400 is the building to on the left.
On the left
Okay, and on the left is that area,
is with the side row.
the side road where you have additional parking.
Yes.
And on the left also is
The loading zone.
the loading zone?
Yep.
Okay. All right, I don't have any more questions for Mr.
So I have a question about that side road. From the pictures, it looks like it's some sort of access to the back of the building. Does anyone else use that area? It's just for this building?
It just goes to, yeah, I've been out there, that's why I was wondering too, but it just
Yeah.
goes to his building. There's no, it like dead ends into his building in the back. There's no,
Okay.
Nobody else.
there's
can
no
use it.
access to any, it doesn't go anywhere else. There's
Okay.
no access. And there's enough room in the back where if cars were parked there, they can turn around and come out. They don't have to back out onto
Okay.
Baltimore Pike. They can make a turn. It's wide enough.
Okay. So I guess, would you have like more of the workers park there, and then will it be striped or anything for parking, or,
No.
so it doesn't
Well,
block the loading zone?
No,
Or,
no, the loading zone, they got plenty of room and even 2 or more cars parking because it's a real wide open on the, you can see on a plan, so it's wide open to the loading zone.
It's very wide in the front. And
Or-
it gets narrower in the
Right.
in the back.
Even
yeah, that's what I was saying. Maybe if it was striped, you would know, so no one, as it gets,
You could
More narrow?
You could stripe it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
just a
that's no
couple
that's no
parallel
problem. Yeah,
parking spaces.
they could put in striping for parallel parking.
Okay.
yes.
Yeah, I have no other question.
I have a question around, so you answered one about the width of the parking. How far back? So say, for instance, I'm sure you can't put it right at the front of the side, because if they're parked on an angle or however a truck's trying to get through, I think they would need some clearance for backing out or turning or something if you did it at the very front. So how far would one have to walk from their car around to the front to your entrance? Because that is the front entrance, right? The only way to get in to your business?
Correct. Well, I mean, it's not far, maybe 20 feet. If you parked in the back of if they were real, as the panel said, they'd have the employees most likely parked furthest away and save the front spots for the customers. The furthest you'd have to, I guess if they were really busy and you had to park in the back, the furthest should be maybe 150 feet.
Do you own the land that is, where, I'm looking at Google Maps, so
Mhm.
where it is green, like there's the driveway, do you own any portion of that land where it's greenery? It's green?
Before, when my mother-in-law, they bought the building, they told it had to be rent the part of the road because it's the road, what do you call, roadside on the part. Well, we never take care of the side. We always cut the grass and clean up because when the wind coming over, we see a lot of trash there. So in a couple of pictures, you can see all clean up because we already, try nice for the neighbors, keep it cleaning.
I think one of the pictures even showed cars on that side, so I'm wondering, can you possibly widen that if you are the owner of that?
I don't know. We have.
Not all of it, but at least.
Looks like there's some
I-
high wire electrical
I'm-
that,
I'm not sure where the property line is, but I don't,
Yeah.
I kind of,
Yeah, but this would get in, I would assume there's some sort of right of way for the electrical.
Yeah,
Based on the survey plan, it looks like there's a existing railroad right away, even though the railroad doesn't exist there anymore.
right.
So what you're seeing there can, especially with images like this one where you see the posts come down, that's probably well within the right of way. So there's probably not significant room to expand. Would
I
that
would agree,
agree?
I would agree with that. I don't know for sure, but I would agree. I think that is probably correct.
To frame the relief, how many spots are required for this use?
Well, I guess if I do the division correctly, it's 17 and a half. I guess you round up
So
to 18.
And then I know you mentioned there are 10 spots across the front.
10
Yes,
spots
correct.
across the front,
Does,
correct.
what's 404 being used as, and does that use require any parking?
That's vacant, right? They testified that it's vacant right now, and they might have it for storage for their building. There won't be any, there won't be any floor area, there won't be any customers in 404 or anything like that.
I guess the question is if the board grants relief based on the understanding that those 10 spots exist and that is used for something other than storage for your business, what happens then?
I guess we'd have to come back, and 404 would have to ask for relief and whether or not, I don't know, whether or not,
Do you have an easement or any type of agreement to allow the parking off-site on the other parcel?
well, it's the same, like I said, it's the same deed, it's the same owner.
One
It's-
deed,
it's their-
two
it's their mo-
parcels.
It's their mother.
One deed, two parcels, correct?
One deed, two parcels,
Okay.
correct.
So if the board were to grant relief, it would run with the land, and we would rely on the existence of, it looks like, man, I closed my thing. So there are five spots depicted on the 400 parcel and 5 spots depicted on the 404 parcel
Correct.
in the drawing that's
Correct,
provided.
correct.
So the board if they choose to grant relief on the parking requirement, will be relying on the ability for this property to park 5 cars off-site.
Well, also we have, from the township, they have empty spots right on Front Street. We have 1, 2, 3 more meters on the road. And the front is a gas station, they have two more parking spots. For right now, we are working there, nobody uses it because not too many business on that area.
By saying for now, you have no intention
No,
to
we-
use 404?
No, we don't have no intention for now,
Other than warehouse, storage?
only for storage for.
Guys have any other questions? Is there any public comment for this application or people requesting party status? No? Okay. I think I will make a motion to grant this application with the condition that if there is any development of that second site at
With that 404?
404 Lancaster, that you would be required to
we
come
would
back
come
in
back.
to the zoning hearing board.
Understood.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
very
Thank
much.
you for your
Thank you.
time.
Garrett, do you want to come up again? We'll go back to
1-5.
I was able to get a hold of Innocent, and he's going to come down here. He said he's about an hour out. I don't know if the meeting's going to go
Tonight?
that much further. Yeah, is that possible or no?
I don't know that we have an hour left.
All right,
of
we can do the
agenda.
20, he can do the 25th as well, but when
25th
I
of
got him, he
April.
said, listen, I can be there in an hour if that was
I mean,
possible.
we can wait and see, I guess, but
It's really
So-
up to you guys. If we have to come back on the 25th, I mean, I guess that's what it is at this point.
If it helps, I don't think my case is going to take an hour.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
I would say tell him not to get in his car.
Yeah.
Hey, he's already on his way, but it's okay. I'll tell him from the parking
Well,
lot.
we will continue this to April 25th.
Okay, the 25th?
Yes.
So
Thank you
yes,
very much.
April 25th at 7 PM in the municipal building. We will not require reposting of the property for this.
Okay, outstanding. Thank you very much. All right, thank you.
Yeah, I don't have a Copley Road application. I watched that today.
Wow.
Okay, so we will move on
Punishment.
to appeal. This is 3-1, application of, I'm gonna butcher the name here, Kamrazaman, Bayuyan. Close, okay. For a special, for a variance from section 550-20, table 5-1, to permit no side yard setback in a C3 district where 5 feet is required. The property is situated at 223 South 69th Street. It's in Upper Darby, PA. It's in the C3 Commercial District and in the 6th Council District.
All right, before I let you begin, we'll enter board exhibits. ZHB1 will be the application packet, ZHB2 will be the notice photos, and ZHB3 will be proof of publication. Is there anybody present tonight who would like to request party status for this application? Seeing none. Sir, if you can introduce yourself.
Good evening, Madam Chair, members of the board, and Mr. Solicitor. Sean Ward on behalf of the applicant. That's SHAWNWARD. Present with me tonight is Kamrazaman Bayuyan. For ease, we call him Kamar. Okay. In addition, we have our design professional in case there's any specific questions regarding the plan. In the interest of brevity and board economy, I would like to make an offer of proof summarizing the case. Mr. Kamar can then verify my representations as true and correct and adopt them as his own testimony if there's no objection.
I'm fine with that.
Awesome. Yeah, as the solicitor indicated, we submitted our zoning hearing board application with attachments. This property is located at 223 South 69th Street in Upper Darby. It's an application for the complete demolition of an existing one-story structure and for the proposed erection of a new mixed-use commercial building. First floor and basement would be, first floor would be commercial use, basement would be mechanicals and utility storage, and there would be 2 apartments on the upper floors, the second and third. So the property consists of an existing 1,674 square foot parcel, as stated, with an existing frame structure, 1 story. We would propose to demolish that. Mr. Kamar operates the business there. He's been there for what, 5 years?
Yes.
Right. Tax and insurance business office. He's looking to expand, and in order to more or less finance the project, he'd like to build 2 apartments up, on the second and third floor. I would point out to the board that both the uses are permitted by the township's zoning ordinance. So the commercial use is permitted, as are the multifamily dwelling above. So the plans are attached to the application. This property is situate in the C3 Commercial District. The proposed structure provides needed commercial space for the owner and adds permitted multifamily residential use for eyes and ears on the street. I wish Ms. LaRue was still here. I'm a graduate of Drexel University, but she was hitting all the points that I was going to try and make tonight. But this property is very close to the transportation terminal, 69th Street. The only variance we're seeking is a side yard setback. Ironically, if there was a building next to us and we attached to it, we wouldn't even be here. But because there's no building next to us, we're considered a detached building, and therefore we need a 5-foot side yard setback relief. With regard to the questionnaire attached to the application, there was no traffic study performed. The applicant, the owner, and the design professionals, it's my understanding they met frequently with the township staff, and they've reviewed this application. I don't believe there's any objection to it. Metered parking is available on 69th Street, and the subject property, again, is within walking distance of the 69th Street Transportation Center. In addition, we have with us tonight, this was not included in the packet, but it's an off-street parking lease agreement for 4 additional spaces, which are located 2 units down at 227.
Mr. Ward, we'll mark this as A1.
Very good. So, not that we're seeking a variance for parking. We believe that the variance requested is de minimis, given the fact that if it was an attached structure, we wouldn't even require a side yard setback. Furthermore, we submit that to this end, the proposed project encourages the development of office and commercial uses in the central business area. It ensures that such establishments are protected from the intrusion of incompatible uses, i.e. both uses are permitted in the district. It protects and maintains the value of property located within and adjacent to the commercial district. It strengthens the township's tax base with employment base and economic viability of commercial areas. And in addition, it encourages pedestrian access and minimizes traffic congestion on that block. So in my application packet, you will see his deed of ownership dated 18th of September, 2018. I also have a copy of the county tax map, a survey plan, floor plans, elevations, and some renderings. It's renderings of the property from the Here's the Plan LLC. And then it's got the floor plans. Again, it's two apartments, 3 bedrooms each, and a copy of the zoning map and some outtakes of your zoning ordinance indicating that multifamily dwelling apartments are permitted in C3, as is the office use for either professional, real estate, insurance, and travel. Other than that, it complies with all the other dimensional requirements of the code. Kumar?
Yes, sir.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Kumar, you've heard my representations to the board this evening.
Yes.
Are they true and correct to the best of your knowledge, information, and belief?
Yes.
And do you adopt them as your own testimony?
Yes.
Thank you.
I had a question. What's the existing setback for the existing building?
Right now, I believe there is approximately a 5-foot setback from the property line.
Okay.
And next to this building that we're proposing is a parking lot owned by the adjoining property.
Is that where the lease agreement or the parking
Now,
agreement?
that's the next
one?
property down.
Okay.
But Kumar has had discussions with the adjoining property owner, and they have not expressed any objection to this application, correct? So, and they would be here tonight too, if they were.
Okay.
So,
Have you, if you're right on the property line and you're building a new building, how are you going to construct that without going on to the adjacent property?
Well, in essence, the wall, the side wall of the building we propose would be a party wall. That could be at the property line. And if in the future, the adjoining property owner ever wanted to build, they just attach right to it. There's no windows on that side, not permitted by code if it's going to be a party wall. And again, if there was an existing building there, we would be doing exactly that. We'd just be attaching to it. And we wouldn't need the side yard setback because, it's 0 or 5 is what it comes down to.
Okay. Go ahead, Bob.
I've got some questions kind of based on what you're showing there. In your layout drawings, you have openings for a trash room and I guess it's in one of the other apartments. How would they open if they're up against another wall? You aren't using a setback.
I think the party wall is the other side. So if you look at
There's
the,
a parking lot on the one side, but if they convert that to use as a building,
right, but the party wall is the other side of the building, not the trash, not the one with the doors for the trash.
Correct.
okay?
The other side, the side with the trash. The side with the trash room also has the entrance, the rear entrance to the secondary egress to the office, correct?
Correct.
Your drawing shows it as being 25 and a half feet.
Yeah, if you're looking at sheet A1 that's attached to my package.
Yes,
Yeah, those doors that you see, ingress and egress, are on the non-party wall side.
thank you
On
for
the,
your
on the
clar-
right side would be where the parking lot is that the adjoining property owner could attach to us, should they so decide in the future.
Thank you.
Is the property developable 5 feet at 20 feet 6 inches?
Is it? Yeah, but in the future, if the adjoining property owner wanted to build, attached structures are permitted. So the hardship is because there's no structure to attach to, we're considered a detached structure, and therefore we're required to have a 5-foot setback. So,
Well, I'm not sure that that's a hardship.
Hold on, I'm going to backtrack here. Is the 5-foot setback that we're requesting, I'm going to ask the zoning officer this question. Is the 5-foot setback required on the future, we'll call it the future party wall side? Or are we looking at a 5-foot setback issue on the Market Street direction side?
I believe it would be on the party wall side.
yeah, we're complying with,
Right.
we're complying with the 5-foot setback on the left.
The
It's on the
triangle
right.
tip piece.
And pardon me, I had a shingle shot on Sunday, so I got side effects
You're right.
going on.
I think that, I'm just going to ask the clarifying question. When I'm looking at the plan mark C0,
Yeah,
on the South 69th Street side, closest to the existing masonry building, it looks like there is not any setback at that pinch point. I thought that was the setback we were talking about. Is it not?
No. It's the side yard setback on this side.
So are we looking for relief on that side too?
I don't believe so. I think we comply on that side.
To the, it's kind of the front, you're talking about the front to 69.
No, I submit that we comply with the 5-foot setback on the,
Yeah, but isn't this the, right here?
on the north face of the building,
Need some bounds
and we need relief for the south face of the building.
Yeah, so it does look like in the one corner, you go all the way to the corner of the property as well. It's not, the building doesn't parallel the,
But I believe the property
It-
line,
One of them might be considered a rear lot line.
well, they're saying the
it's-
rear yard is on Rockland.
No, that's a front yard technically.
Well, I mean, yeah, but if you're saying one of the front yards
No,
is
no, so
considered a front,
it would be, you'd have two front yards, a
Right.
side yard and a backyard. I wonder if that's, one of them's considered the backyard, so I'm trying to find
But it-
where it addresses that specifically.
If it's between the lot line and the side of the building,
Where's your door?
Well, that almost doesn't matter.
Front
the
door would be on
front-
69th Street, but
Yeah, it's on 69th Street.
But they
so
ha-
It doesn't
you get
matter.
The rear door.
Well, it's still a front yard. It's still considered front yard because it
Yeah.
fronts a street.
a property that fronts on two streets has two front yards.
But I think if your side yard, so at that 69th Street, you have, if you look at that C0, you have the meets and bounds for the property. That corner closest to 69th Street looks like it goes to the property line in the corner. So there's zero setback on that side as well.
it's not in front of the building line. So it doesn't become a front or a rear yard until it's beyond the building line, correct?
But yeah, if it's
So that's
zero.
a side yard.
Right, yeah, I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying at that point, you're meeting the property line. So even as you go back, if you had to go back from a front line,
Our understanding is that our design professionals and the property owner met with township staff on several occasions regarding this.
I'm not saying
And it was
we're not-
determined that this is the only thing we need was the side yard setbacks.
I'm not saying you're not noticed correctly. I just want to make sure, because the notice reads that you're asking for relief to permit no side yard setback in a C3 district. So I just want to make sure we understand the relief we're actually considering, because looking at the plan, it looks like you need relief from both
Both sides.
sides. And that's why I'm asking for clarification from the zoning officer. Even if there is,
25.7 feet. Building,
you're talking about 13/100ths of an inch.
literally,
It's my understanding that the
setback on both sides.
striped portion on C-0 is the adjoining parcel. And that where the meets and bounds description is, S8717-612 feet 53, that's probably seconds, minutes, and
Right.
Correct.
that's our parcel.
Right. So when you get to the point, is your design professional, you said your design professional is here?
Yes.
correct? Can he come forward? Can we get him sworn in?
He was scared to death this was going to happen.
Well, I'll go easy on him.
I'll explain why.
Can you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear or affirm that the testimony that you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Can I have your name, please?
Admir Sablich,
Can you spell it for me?
ADMIR, last name SABLJIC.
Okay, Mr. Selbage?
Yes.
Okay.
Can I introduce myself?
Sure.
So I'm an employee of Here's the Plan. I'm not the manager in charge of the project. I'm helping out, and I'm also not a licensed architect yet, so just want to put that out there as well.
What is your training?
I have a master's in architecture.
Master's in
Yeah,
architecture?
and
So
I'm
you-
working on my licensure right now.
Okay, so you're working on your licensure, you're an architectural designer?
Yes.
I assume?
Yes. They don't let us call ourselves architects yet.
Yeah, so, but you understand how to read a plan, correct?
yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And I'm sure you have plenty of a hand in drafting them as well.
Yeah.
So if I can direct your attention to that sheet number C0.
Sure. Yes.
So at Plan North, there's a meet and bound that reads south 87 degrees. Actually, I'm not sure what that number is, but it's the 48-foot property line. I'll call it Plan North property line. As it goes Plan West, it hits the property line that measures 25.73 feet. Do you see that?
Yes.
Okay, so to me, it looks like there is a .13 foot gap between the edge of the building and the side property line at that front corner. Is that correct?
That's the side facing 69th Street,
Yes,
plus or minus, yeah.
plus or minus, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the building's 25, actually, I'm sorry, 0.23 foot, because the building is 25.5 feet wide and the property line is 25.73. So we're looking at a 0.23 foot gap there. That's less than 5 feet,
Yes.
correct? Okay. So I would, I would proffer, and I'm looking at the zoning officer, that for the building as proposed to be constructed, they would require relief from both side yards because of that pinch point.
Oh, wait.
And I think we're fine with how it's noticed, if that's the. Do you disagree with me, Josh?
Yeah, I think that's fine.
So you agree?
I agree.
Then I just wanted the board to be clear that this is, because it has that pinch point, we're looking at relief for both yards. Obviously, I think there is a significant yard on the Rockland Road side. However, on the 69th Street side, there is not the required 5 feet for the entire length of the side yard.
I would agree.
So on that same side, there's an existing building, but it doesn't extend all the way to the property line. It only extends,
We don't know.
There is some type of gap.
yeah, there looks like a gap the whole way.
Existing survey
Yeah.
done, there's a small portion
The
that
the
does
very,
go.
the very last page of my packet has an aerial photo.
So there would be no chance for the party wall on that side.
No. Not on that side.
So if the hardship on the other side is because if you had a party wall, you could go to 0 feet, what's the hardship on that side? The 48 feet side, I'll call it.
Technically, we could attach to that wall.
You could?
Right.
What- You could not. There's a gap
There's a
to the
gap on the
property.
front, there's only like a small portion in the back that
What if I
goes
phrase
to
it
the
differently?
property line.
Okay.
Facing not 69, but Rockland.
I'm gonna try to rephrase the chairwoman's question so that maybe we can get some clarity. Since we have someone from the architect's office here, why was this building designed to be 25.5 feet wide? Why does it need to be that width on this property?
So there are multiple reasons. If we have to, maybe we can make it a little bit, I'm trying to remember, but one reason is why we didn't follow it.
In front of you.
Yeah.
You can look,
Sorry.
take a second, look at the exhibits you have, floor plans, whatever.
So one reason why we didn't follow the property line on the north side facing the existing parcel is because of the irregular shape of the site. And for ease of construction, it's way easier to just build a box. It's way cheaper for the client as well. That's why we didn't even try to go all the way to the property line up there. And then we also didn't want to go all the way to the back with the building as well. We wanted to leave some room there for landscaping and stuff. Those are just the dimensions that came out while we're designing it, what we're trying to lay out. Could we reduce it by a foot? Maybe. Would we have liked
How
to
about
have
5
more
feet? Could you reduce it 5 feet
at the width? No,
to meet the requirement?
I don't think it would be feasible to construct it that way. We
And-
tried
and
to.
Why is that?
It's just not enough room on the commercial side. It's way harder to do the offices Mr. Cameron wants to do. And if we do that, it wouldn't be much wider than it already is. And he needs the space. That's the whole reason why we're doing this, like he needs the space.
So what's the current width of the building?
14 feet.
14 feet. And what's the length of the current building?
38 feet.
So you're increasing the length by 12 additional feet, right? You said 30,
From 69th Street.
right? So if you were to shrink the building width to meet the side yard setback on that northern side,
That would give us a 20-foot, 6-inch wide building. And again, Madam Chair, I would point out that Kumar, you've spoken to the owner on the north side of you as well, correct? And they're not opposed? No. Right. And again, I would also remind the board again that if we were building an attached building, we wouldn't even be here. We can attach the one on the left, we can attach the one on the right, but we're going to leave the space between us and the building to the north on the corner. That's it. And again, if the property owner to the south of us wants to build a building, they can attach right to our party wall. And as you can see, there's nobody opposed to the application, there's nobody present. Client's representation is they spoke to both adjoining property owners who had no objection.
okay. Do you guys have any other comment? Is there any public comment?
We have two supporters in the room. in fact.
Well, yeah, they can come up, sure. I mean, if they want to comment, that's fine.
State your name and spell it for the record.
Hassan Yasin Amin.
Can you spell it, please?
Last name Yasin.
First name?
Hassan Hasan. I mean, I'm his one of his client, and also I live next block to the Heather Road, 223 Heather. And I mean, last 5 years he's been helping the community a lot. Like during the pandemic, he helped a lot of social service, like providing discounted tax services, other things. And we really want him to expand. And he is one of the assets for our community. I mean, he helps. I mean, beyond he's more than business. We find him on different social events, and also in community events and social community crisis. We find this guy. So you want him to expand his business, and he's been helpful to the community, especially with the tax service and other small things. It's hard to find a business that want to do in this area. So he's only one there that I think he'll be very helpful. So you want to see him succeed.
Thank you.
State your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Mustafizur Rahman. And Mostafizur, and last name Rahman. And I live in Heather Road. My address is 222. And he has started this building. He buy this building more than 5 years maybe. I'm not sure the exact year. So we have a good relation with him last 5 years. And he is a good people for this neighborhood. He make a business small right now because he have not enough space. So if he get the opportunity with a big building or big space, so he help the community more and more is my advice. So I support him to grow up our area business, go up.
Thank you.
All right, I guess there's going to be no other comments, so I will, at this point, I'll make a motion to approve Appeal 3-1 of 23. Do I have a second? All those in favor? Aye. Motion passes.
Madam Chair, that concludes my business. May I be excused?
You are, yes. And the same with us, because that's our last appeal.
We'll put on the record that the board did also meet in executive session prior to tonight's hearing to review questions of law.
We'll make a motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
All those in favor? What's it?
Thank you, everybody. Good night. Bye.
No. The golden.
No, we have timeline extensions until April.
Yeah, yeah, because,